Hi, this is Lisa Rangel with Chameleon Resumes, the premier executive resume writing company. And thank you so much for joining me today. So today we're going to talk about 3 wrong assumptions that I see executives make about the Great Resignation. Now, the Great Resignation has been talked about for a good 6 to 8 months at least, if not longer, and it's going to be discussed, I think, for at least another year, if not longer, because workers at all levels are finding that they can resign, they can quit, they can opt out of work because of quality of life issues. And I think that now that's a realization for workers at all levels, and that's why we're seeing such a mass exodus from individuals in the marketplace from the workplace for different reasons. However, I see that there's pockets of groups that are making these widespread assumptions based on what they read, and in actuality it may not apply to them. So and the executives are a group that I see making wrong assumptions about the Great Resignation, and I want to just talk about them because I want everyone in that category to have all the information that they need before they were to make any decisions about job changes. So let's talk about the 3 wrong assumptions that I see executives making about the Great Resignation. So the first wrong assumption is they assume that it won't be competitive for them to do a job search. And I'm here to tell you that the job search at the executive level is still competitive, and there's a bunch of different reasons. It could depend also on your industry, how competitive or not as competitive it may be, but it is still competitive in a general sense for the simple economics of it all, like supply and demand. There's one CFO job in a company, right? There's one CEO job in a company. There's one maybe director of marketing. If it's a large company, there might be several, but it's still fewer than the staff level marketing coordinator job, right? Or there's maybe hundreds of developers in a large tech company, but there's going to be one CIO, right? So, when you have people leaving at the staff and middle management level, and there's fewer people to replace those, vast amount of openings, you're going to have the shortage that you see and read about in the news. But when, you have one CFO resign because of quality of life issues, and that obviously people are entitled to do that, there's going to be a number of people competing for that one opening. And the competition at the top is simply always going to exist and has always existed because there's just fewer positions at the top. And you can't compete the way you did when you were going for the staff accountant job, say, or the accounting manager job, the same way that you would as if you're going for the CFO job. So the first wrong assumption is that, because of the Great Resignation, I can land any position. And at the senior level, that's not necessarily the case. It's still really competitive. It's just, again, there could be various reasons why that's the case based on your own individual industry and your own individual background, but for the general reason that applies to almost everybody is simply because there's fewer positions at the top that more people are competing for. So that don't assume that it's not going to be competitive just because you read about the Great Resignation. So the second assumption that people make, or that executives make about the wrong assumption that executives make about the Great Resignation is that this is new for them. And what I mean by that, I know that may be a little unclear. So this is what I mean by that. It's not, the reasons the Great Resignation is happening, in my opinion, is because middle management and staff level employees are now starting to see they can leave the marketplace voluntarily because of quality of life issues. They're concerned about their health. They need flexibility. They want remote work, and maybe their staff level nurse job or their food service worker job does not offer that type of option. So they're going to go leave the workplace in that capacity to go find something that that's going to be more suitable from a quality of life, health safety standpoint. And the thing is that at least in my experience in working with executives for the last 20 years, executives have been making quality of life job changes since I've started working in this space. So, this is not new. This reason is not new to the executive job search. So, that's not going to necessarily be a novel reason for doing a job search at the executive level. It doesn't mean it's not okay. It's totally okay. And it doesn't mean that being an executive during the pandemic hasn't been stressful. I mean, it's clearly been stressful. You're worried about your people. You're worried about the profit lines. You're worried about preserving what you have. You're worried about protecting, people and profits. And clearly the game has changed, and profits may be now made in a different way. And you now have to worry about people on a whole different level that you maybe didn't have to worry about before. So, and not to say that it hasn't been demanding on your family, and that's the reason why you need to make a change. Like, all the reasons behind making the change are 100% valid, and the pandemic has absolutely been a challenge for those, at the executive level for different reasons than, say, middle management and staff level. But they've absolutely it's been a trying time, right? But the reason for making the change, when it's a quality of life issue, right? I want to have more flexibility. I want to spend more time with my family. That reason is not new to the executive set. At least the executives that come to work with me, they're typically doing that type of they're typically making that type of change well before the pandemic happened. So what I think now is happening for the Great Resignation is that quality of life reason is now an option for the middle management and the staff level employee. Whereas before, staff level and middle management people didn't necessarily leave a job because they wanted a better quality of life, because their peers would be like, what do you mean? That's a great job. You shouldn't leave. And the pressure to stay when you have a good job exists, right? And I don't think that option was very available or apparent that it could be done at the staff or middle management level. And that exactly is what is happening now. The pandemic did that for people. They value their health, they value their family, it's the reprioritization, so to speak. And so that option that only used to really be more prevalent at the executive senior level is now being seen and taken by the middle management and staff level. So that, to me, is a wrong assumption that sometimes those at the executive level make. This is not a new reason to make a job change at this level. It's been happening. So again, it doesn't make it any less valid. It's just not new. That's all. And then the third wrong assumption, and I have them written down here, so bear with me. The third wrong assumption that executives make about the Great Resignation is, because they read about worker shortages and recruiters being unable to find candidates and things like that, that they think that every recruiter is going to be waiting to talk to them and they're going to have the pick of the litter. And I'm here to tell you that doesn't always happen at the executive level. So, you need to have your network nurtured at the executive level. Because again, like I said in the first point, there's one or two positions at the top in a given discipline, right? There may be a CIO, a CTO, right? Or a CDO, Chief Digital Officer, or there might be, CDO and a CMO. There might be one or two or three different, VP, EVP, C-level roles within a small company. There might be a few more of the EVP and senior level roles at a larger company, clearly only one C-level typically. But, there's going to be a number of people competing for those very few positions. Unlike the economics at the supply and demand, economics at the staff level or middle management level, there's a lot more positions at the middle and entry level or staff level of a company, and not enough people competing for them, hence why there's a shortage. So things you read about in the news, you really need to add some critical thinking and discernment to the information you're reading and see if that truly applies to you and the level of the bracket that you're in, the industry that you're in, the profession that you're in. It may, right? Like when you start looking at little individual situations, you have to assess your own pros and cons. You have to assess your own Where's your supply and demand angles that you can play and pivot and leverage in order to come up with your angle. But you can't assume what you read in the headlines is going to be applicable to you if you're at the senior level or the C level. So, you can't assume that recruiters are dying to talk to you just because you started to turn on, the notice that you're now looking. Because again, there's a lot more people that want that senior level job and very few of those senior jobs typically available just by the simple hierarchy of the way a company's set up, right? So don't assume that once you start looking for a job that you're automatically going to have a lot of people talking to you. And I don't say that to be negative, right? I say it to be prepared, right? I would love for you to be prepared for having to do more legwork in your search, but you see recruiters very eager and wanting to talk to you. But what I often see happen is people are assuming, oh, once I start looking, all the recruiters are going to come, and they don't always come. And it could be really ego shattering. So don't assume that that's the case. That's definitely a third wrong assumption executives make about the Great Resignation. So, doing an executive level job search is different than rest of the different types of searches one can do. So that's what I'm an expert in. It's what my team's an expert in. It's what we bring, our decades of recruiting experience to the table when we work with clients. So I am going to ask you, if you like what you hear and feel like this is relevant to you, I'm going to ask you to share the information. I'm going to also ask if you know that somebody would benefit from this if you know that someone would benefit from this information, including yourself. In the comments below, I have where you can join my email list, because I do regular monthly executive mastermind sessions where I bring a small group of executives and senior professionals together, selected. You have to apply to attend, and you have to apply and be chosen to attend. And this way, if you'd like to be a part of those, you need to be on my mailing list, so you can start to participate in those if you'd like to apply. So I'm going to ask you to join my mailing list. I'm going to be doing one tomorrow. But if you miss tomorrow's, don't worry about it. Again, if you're on the list, you'll get the notification for the next one. And so I hope you can share this information if you know someone who will benefit from that. So again, Lisa Rangel, Chameleon Resumes, and thank you so much for joining me today. Have a great day and see you next week.